Hi everyone, it's Shamila here from Can Do Teach, and in this video we're going to be factorizing non-monic quadratics. So, quadratic equations can be split into two different types. The first is the case where a is equal to 1. So we call these monic quadratics. And they're the type we learned to factorize in the previous video. So things that look like x squared plus 3x plus 2, something like that. So there's nothing in front of the x squared. So the other type, which we're going to be factorizing today, is where a is not equal to 1. And these are called non-monic quadratics. So these are ones where there is something in front of the x squared, like 2x squared plus 3x plus 5, something like that. Okay, so let's have a look at how we're going to factorize these things. So the first technique I'm going to show you is called splitting the middle term, and you'll see why that is in just a second. So the very first thing I do is identify what my a, b, and c are. So in this question, a is 3, b is 8, and c is 4. So the first thing I have to do here is find two numbers that multiply to give ac and add to give b. So before in the monic factorization, we just had to find two numbers that multiply to give c and add to give b. But this time we have to multiply to give a times c. So here we go, something times something equals a times c, which is 12. So I'll just write here that that's ac, so you remember. And they add to give 8, which is b. So see if you can think of two such numbers. They'd be 6 and 2. So we use these two numbers this time. We can't put them straight into the brackets. We use them to split the middle term. So instead of writing 8x this time, I'm going to write 6x plus 2x. Okay, so now I've got 4 terms and I have to do 4-term factorization. And I do that by grouping my terms like this. So I look at these two and say, what's the common factor? Well, for these two, it's 3x, and it has to be the largest common factor. So 3x, in here I've got x plus 2 remaining, not x squared plus 2, x plus 2. And in these two, I have a common factor of 2, and I also have x plus 2. So now I have two terms with a common factor of x plus 2. So the whole bracket can be the common factor. And then we go x plus 2 outside of 3x plus 2. And that's it, it's factorized. So just to double check we've factorized correctly, let's expand. So we've got x times 3x is 3x squared. X times 2 is 2x. 2 times 3x is 6x. And 2 times 2 is 4. So if I simplify that, I'll get 3x squared plus 8x plus 4, which is exactly what I started with. Cool? So that's the splitting the middle term method. So just to go over it again, we start by identifying our terms, our a, b, and c. Then we find the product of a and c, and we find two numbers that multiply to give ac and add to give b. Then we use those two numbers to split the middle term, and then we've got a 4-term expression that we group into the first two terms and the last two terms, factorize out of each, and then factorize out of that. So the key thing in this is it doesn't matter which order you split the middle term in, as long as you keep the first term and the last term in the right positions, okay? Then you can always group and factorize out. A little check in the middle is that these two brackets, when you do the first grouped factorization, should always come out to be the same. If they don't come out to be the same, then you've either split the middle term wrong or you haven't fully factorized. So you might have taken just the x out but not the 3 out. So you have to factorize the biggest common factor and make sure that these two come out the same. Otherwise you won't be able to take out the common factor to finish the factorization. Okay, so let's try another example. So here we've got a is equal to 4, b is equal to -4. Make sure you keep the negative sign in the coefficient, it is part of the coefficient, and -15. So this time, what do I want my two numbers to multiply to? They have to multiply to a times c, which is -60. And they have to add to the b, which is -4. So because they're both negative, that means this has to be a positive and a negative, and they should have a difference of 4. So two numbers that multiply to give 60 and have a difference of 4, that sounds like 6 and 10 to me. So I can put down my 6 and 10, 6 and 10. And then the bigger one has to be negative so that I get a sum of -4. Okay, so I use those two numbers that I found to split the middle term. So I've got 4x squared minus 10x plus 6x minus 15. Again, it doesn't matter which way I put these. Now the common factor between these two is the x and also a 2. So I've got 2x here minus 5. And then the common factor between these two is 3. So 3 outside of 2x minus 5. And hooray, these two are the same. So I can factorize that now. 2x minus 5, 2x plus 3. And my factorization is done. So the method we've been doing in these examples is called splitting the middle term. And that's because we use the two numbers that we find here to split the middle term and then factorize with the grouping. So for the next example, I'm going to show you a slightly different method, which can save you a bit of time, but you have to get really good at picking the right numbers. So I like to have this method to fall back on. And actually when I do it myself, I kind of use a combination of the two methods. So I'll show you that for the very last question. Okay, so this one we're going to factorize using the cross method. So for the cross method, what I start off by doing is factorizing A and factorizing C. So in this case it's pretty easy because both of these are prime numbers, so there's only one set of factors that it can be. So for the factors of 2 are 2 and 1, so I'm going to write them nice and small just below the number, and the factors of 5 are 5 and 1. Okay. If we like, we can go 2x and 2x, sorry, 2x and 1x. So what the cross method does is we look at these and we multiply them in a cross pattern. So I say that 2x times 1 is 2x, and 1x times 5 is 5x. So if these two add up to the middle term, that means I've done it correctly. Okay, so this time they add up to 7x, which is not minus 11x, so I haven't done it right. So I have to try again. So what I'm going to do, if it comes out wrong, is I'm going to change the order of these. I'm going to write 1 here and 5 here, okay? So 2x times 5 is 10x, and 1x times 1 is 1x, and they add up to 11. So I've got the right number now, but the wrong sign. And so 5 also has factors of -1 and -5, okay? So if it was -1 and -5, that would make each of these negative, and then I've got it correct. So these two add up to -11x, which means that I've got my factors, which are just these. So I can write 2x minus 1, x minus 5. Okay, so a lot of that working out is actually done in your head. So I'll just show you again how I would really do that without all the explanations. So the 2 has factors 2 and 1. The 5 has factors 5 and 1. But because this is positive and this is negative, that means that both of these must be negative. Okay, because negative times negative is positive, and negative plus negative is negative. So I'll try and cross multiply. So 2 times -1 is -2. 1 times -5 is -5. So -2 plus -5 is -7, which means that it's wrong because it's not -11. So I'll switch these two over, 1 and 5. And this time I get 2 times -5 is -10. And 1 times -1 is -1. So -10 and -1 is -11. And so that's correct. So then I read across, and these are my brackets. 2x minus 1, 1x minus 5. So 2x minus 1, x minus 5. Okay, that's done. So the cross method is faster in a way. There's a lot less writing, but it can get really frustrating if you keep picking the wrong numbers here, and you have to keep rewriting them. So here I can erase them, so it looks quite nice, but if you're doing it in your book and you're trying it over and over again and have to keep erasing it, it can get really annoying. So it's better to go the splitting the middle term way in those cases. So I'll show you a case that's a little bit more complicated to do by the cross method and explain to you how I would actually do it. Okay, so this time we have something a little bit more complicated because we don't have prime numbers. This one's prime, but this one is not. So we're going to have more factors to try out, so a lot more trial and error to be done. So on the bright side, they are all positive, so I don't have to worry about negatives at all. I know everything's going to be positive. So 3 is nice because I know it's just going to be 3 and 1. But for 10, I don't know exactly which factors to use. So I'll start by trying 10 and 1. Okay? So 10 and 1 will give me 10 and 3, which gives me 13. Not so good. Try switching them around. 1 and 10. That'll give me 1 and 30, so 31. Also not good. 2 and 5. So 2 and 15, 17. Bingo. So now I read across. I've got 2x plus 3. And 5x plus 1. Done. Okay? So I personally really don't like this method when I have to come up with, when I'm just purely doing trial and error, because it can get really frustrating, especially if you're in the middle of a test or something and you just can't come up with the right factors. So what I actually do is I use a combination of the splitting the middle term and the cross method, and that kind of gives me the fastest way to get to the answer. So I start by thinking about my AC and my B. So here AC is 30 and B is 17. So I start by thinking of the two numbers that are going to multiply to give 30 and add to give 17. So I think about that in my head and I come up with 15 and 2. Okay? So I know that 15 and 2 are going to multiply to give 30, and 15 plus 2 are going to add to give 17. Now I go into putting my factors down. And if I have any prime numbers, then I'll start with that one, so 3 and 1. And then I think, okay, I need to come up with 15 and 2 in my products. So I want a 15 and a 2 in here somehow. So what's going to give me 15? Either 15 times 1 or 5 times 3. And 5 is a factor of 10. So I'm going to put that one here. And then what's left is 2. So then that's going to give me my 15. That's going to give me my 2. So this time I was able to get the factors in the correct arrangement on the first try. It took a little bit of extra preparation work, but I got them in the first try. And so now I just go ahead and read across 2x plus 3, 5x plus 1. Alright, so that's how I use a combination of the splitting the middle term method and the cross method to factorize a non-monic quadratic. So I hope that helps you deal with your more difficult factorization problems. They do take quite a bit of practice to get good at picking the right factors, but try out the different methods that I've shown you today and see which ones you like best. It is also important to remember that not every quadratic can be factorized. So if you're spending ages trying to come up with the right number and you just can't find the right factors, it is possible that there are no factors to be found. And we'll be dealing with those kind of quadratics in a future video. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Otherwise, you can always get one-to-one help from candoteach.com. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!